Hello, this is Jenny Wise of the Media Talks podcast, and I am absolutely beyond delighted and honored that my friend Hillary Rea is our guest today. How you doing, Hillary?
I'm doing well. My Wi-Fi went down maybe 45 minutes ago, and I was like, I still want to do this interview. And so I'm currently hot spotting from my Light Phone 3
Oh
to
my
get
goodness.
internet, which is, I feel like, appropriate for the situation, which is why I
Wow.
wanted to still do it.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like people, just when they're in my presence, their phones break.
Well, right now, my phone is doing a great
It
service
really is.
in
I
honor
love,
of the internet.
thank
So,
you. Well, and also look what's still possible.
mm-hmm.
I'm just amazed at how pervasive the message is that you cannot do life. It is not possible to even breathe without a smartphone. And look at you, even doing it without Wi-Fi.
And it took me like 5 minutes to problem solve, whereas in
Wow.
the past, I feel like it would have been a more complicated go to, but I feel like my brain is wired to now problem solve in new ways. Thanks to you.
Wow. Well, I am always it's always hilarious when you hear someone else benefiting from something you've offered and you're not benefiting from it. I'm in the exact opposite place of life. I'm like, how is everything so hard? How is it so hard?
Hmm.
Um, So I just the world of any single thing service that you have, having its own account and the payment connected to it, and then the password to it, and then the loopholes in it, and it's just like, wow, so overwhelming. Okay, so let's dive into the specialness of you. That those are the things that we share with the rest of humanity. But let's introduce yourself how you like to introduce yourself to people.
Sure. So I am a recently former entrepreneur. I ran a company called Tell Me a Story. And it took many shapes and forms, but I was running it starting in 2011 and closed it at the very beginning of 2025, at the end of January of 2025. And I am a former entrepreneur, but I am most importantly a creative producer, which means I create live immersive events. I create audio stories, mostly in podcast form. And then I live in this weird world of editorial content that goes out into the world in ways other than social media. So those are sort of the three
Right,
spaces that I
right.
live in. And I'm social media free. I'm now committing to this term digital minimalist. I'm a digital minimalist. And I have a dog that I would say I'm almost a full-time stay-at-home dog mom while in this job search.
Right, right. Well, I just feel thrilled that you're here to tell us your story. But it's way bigger than that. It's not just that you go around telling a story. It's that you really help people to find their own stories, which I really think has completely changed in the face of social media. And
Yes.
I'm thinking when you like if I go back in time to when this started to be a presenting theme, it was surfacing in the two worlds at the same time. In the marketing world was starting to say our company needs to tell its story. People are going to hire us if we have a story. And then, sort of parallel to that, was a lot of probably Brene Brown's work. I feel like is
Hmm.
was influencing the therapeutic community. We were learning all of this research about healing trauma was about healing your trauma narrative and being able to tell a cohesive story. Was a way of really organizing shattered traumatic experiences. And then I all of a sudden I'm trying to even remember when we all became a brand. You
Oh my gosh.
at some point in time, right? I mean, you were very active on social media. I've just always assumed that, but we've never even talked about that part of your life.
Yeah, I was active in that I had like 9 accounts because I had multiple accounts. You know, I left before TikTok, but I was a Twitter, a Facebook, and an Instagram gal. And so I had all my personal ones, but I also had Tell Me a Story accounts on all of those platforms. My first podcast, Rashomon, which was a long form narrative show about family, that had all of its own social accounts.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's 9. I think I had 9 to 10, but I wouldn't say I like
Right.
loved it or like posted all the time or I mean, I definitely felt pressure to, and I definitely did. But now that I've been removed from it for 5 years, it's like hard to remember how in it
Even
I
how it
was.
worked.
But I definitely felt the effects of it, both positively and negatively for sure.
Well, I'm curious your opinion about this. One of my hypothesis is that if all of social media was only businesses actually advertising and promoting and marketing what they were selling, I think it would be great. Like I think it's
Interesting.
kind of made for I have a product, I'm selling
Hmm.
it, I'm trying to find my audience there or they want to learn more about it. To me, that feels a lot more it's transactional and
Hmm.
it's honestly transactional.
Hmm.
No one thinks, a company is on Instagram to do anything different.
Correct. I'm now also remembering I had another Instagram account set up just to look at businesses and celebrities and things, but I didn't want it to be in my personal. Like I wanted my personal to be my friends. So I had this like guilty pleasure account that I
Well,
went to, but it was more like, I mean, way before the algorithm was like it was still when things were in chronological order and you would
yeah,
see
yeah.
everything. So it did feel more of like an organic experience with brands and companies for sure.
Whew. Oh my goodness. Okay, I have a handful of questions to ask you. I'll
Sure.
be shocked if we get through all of them today, but I had never actually researched you before.
Oh,
So I had so much fun being like, I'm going to get ready for an official interview with Hillary.
that's
Um,
really interesting. Can I just jump in and
yes,
say one
yes.
of the things I did when shutting down my business was I took myself because of a personal thing. I was like, I don't want to be a Google person anymore. And so I like all of my business was run in like Google Suite and everything. I shut that all down, deleted it, shut that website down, had things forwarded, but then like moved everything into this company called Proton. And I noticed in doing so, a lot of my search stuff that used to come up that like did a pretty good job of telling my story and my company story went away. So I'm so curious what you found.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I was really excited to see there was an article that I guess you'd been interviewed in talking about how you were moving away from the traditional hero's story.
Oh, yes. That is still true. Yes.
And I love Brooke Marlin. I love, love, love her so much. I maybe did read that article back in the day. I couldn't read it today because I didn't have a subscription to it.
Mm.
But it made me, I kind of wanted to start with that, like one of the things that the article said is that you're moving away from a traditional hero's journey. But I thought maybe a lot of people might even need to understand what a traditional hero's journey is.
Mm.
So, could you give us like a tiny little history lesson in that so we can
Sure.
build off of that?
So it is said that the term hero's journey was created by Joseph Campbell, writer, I think,
Yeah, yeah.
philosopher, person. I don't have like a historical timeline of it, but it had his definition of what a hero's journey is, which is like a very specific beginning, middle, and narrative structure where there's one character that sets out, there's something that sets that character out on a quest of some sort, whether it's like an internal sense of conflict or something, a precipitating event. And through that, there's a series of obstacles and challenges, and there's usually like a climactic moment. It's every single Marvel
Yeah,
movie,
yeah.
basically
And
everything
most
in
of every,
culture,
yeah,
like advertised, literally everything.
right.
And then there's this climactic moment, and then the hero is changed at the end of the story from the beginning. That's sort of the rough, sort of general way. And one thing that's just popping to mind for me right now that I would like to jump in and say is when I was 25, I moved to Japan for a year and I taught English. And I ended up teaching in a really rural area of the country on a northern island called Hokkaido. And I had to travel to 25 schools because it was a depopulated area with a very small budget. And so instead of assigning one English teacher to each school, they had a couple traveling teachers. So I ended up going to 25 schools. And I had two jobs. One was to introduce myself and kind of put on a show in English and like teach them about America and at the
So
time,
fun.
New York and Philadelphia
Yeah.
and musical theater, which is what I had just gone to school for, all of that. The other thing was to read aloud their textbooks so that they can hear it in a native accent and native flow and to learn that way. And I remember reading this one essay that was in maybe a junior high textbook where the subject was superhero versus Anpan Man. And Anpan Man is a Japanese superhero. And I didn't get to read it ahead of time. I'm reading it in real
Real
time.
real life.
And it's basically saying that America is this like individualistic, like fighting for like one's own resources, like, getting the enemy, overcoming, winning, like hero's journey. And that was Superman. And then they talked about Anpan Man, who had like a collective of superhero friends. And together they worked together to like create resources and help people and it was like an anti-hero's journey thing. But I was so like, I was a 25-year-old from America and I was like, this is so offensive. This is racist. Like, this is all of these stereotypes in this textbook. And now I look back so many years later and I was like, that middle school essay was perfect. It was absolutely accurate. So it's funny that I got to that place in my work so many years later.
Later and remembered it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so now describe what does it mean to move away from it?
Mm.
What for you personally?
Yeah. So that Britt Marling op-ed that was in the it is in the New York Times, and that is sad that it really is only accessible via the subscription or,
Right,
beyond a
right.
paywall websites. But it was written in February 2020. So it was pre-pandemic. She probably wrote it like a month before that. And it was this idea, the title was I Don't Want to Be Another Strong Female Lead. And she was talking about her experience as an actor and she worked in corporate America and her experience as an actor and those parallels of how women are pigeonholed into these roles. And when the strong female lead came out, they still get killed. They still they don't fit into the hero's journey. But what if there's a way, instead of trying to fit into the hero's journey, that there's other ways of storytelling? And she specifically compared the hero's journey to the experience of a male orgasm and said, well, what if there are other ways that are more feminine? Like, how do we think about the female orgasm or the female experience? And what are those storytelling structures? What's possible? And her whole background is in science fiction and I guess historical fantasy. So I think it was also teeing the reader up to experience her work, which I think is
Right.
a brilliant example
Just
in that medium of anti-hero's journey. For me, it was finding and helping all of the people I worked with in my former company find releasing the pressure that every life experience needed to follow that heroic arc,
pattern.
experience, pattern, and that I really like to focus on these, what I call small moment stories. So these really, just the kind of what I just shared about reading that essay, like these snapshots in time that have greater significance or meaning when tapping into them in the present moment of who am I now? Where am I now? What am I doing now? How do these experiences illuminate that without anticipating that heroic ending? Because we don't know how our stories going to end. I mean,
No,
we have these
no.
finite moments in life, but I think there's so much pressure, especially in this personal brand, even business brand storytelling of like I use that podcast, How I Built This, as an example, which is an enjoyable listen, but it's every business has a hero's journey story in that podcast. It's they started small, they had a lot of obstacles they overcame, and now look at them, they sold for billions of dollars. And that's a lot of pressure to put on everybody else to think that their life has
Well,
to fall into that mold as
yeah.
well.
Well, and there's two things you're talking about. One, that specific pattern, but
Hmm.
also just that, oh, I'm 49. Am I at the end of my hero's journey? Am I in the middle of my hero's journey? Did I just start my hero's journey? Like
Hmm.
even the pressure, and that's kind of what I wanted to dive into was just the that social media has created a world, an actual like imagine like a little superhero's world
Hmm.
in which we now have to enter into, like we somehow have to create those stories for everything that we post,
Hmm.
or that it's got to somehow, um, I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
I think there's a lot of pressure to do the right things on these various social media platforms, which some of them I just don't even know
What the right
enough
thing
what the
is.
right
Right,
thing is,
right,
and it's
right.
constantly changing. And it typically, the loudest voices are following that hero's journey format. But I think many people are ignoring the fact that there's also a lot out of one's control once they create that content. So someone could spend all this time like, here's this thing that I need to do and share with the world, and someone might not see it because the algorithm isn't
Right,
supporting
right.
there. So it's a both and. It's like an expectation of format and content, and I think it's constantly evolving. And then the waiting for that hero's end of like, I'm visible, I'm here, this accomplished exactly what I wanted to accomplish, whether it was just like attention
Right,
or
right.
if it's monetization or yeah, a call to action. So it's kind of two opposing forces, I guess.
I was talking to my son earlier today who I truly believe y'all are, is it entangled atoms? Like you are
Yeah,
the same.
we met and chatted and it felt that
You
way.
had to be like you're the same person in two different realities. Um, but he was saying how much of every person's life li is lived in the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
It's lived in the very, very not story-worthy ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would agree with you that I don't know. I do have some men who are great storytellers in ordinary moments, but it does seem to be more of a feminine um, energy is ordinary stories of ordinary life, right?
Hmm.
Um, and that is I was remembering having that. That's kind of how I entered into social media, right? I would tell the story of the tiny part of my day or a tiny
Mm-hmm.
moment. And it did really, like, I loved that. Like, I loved having that avenue as I'm the same as you. And I love collecting stories and sharing them. And this was a platform made just for that. However, um, it did something to me in that it changed my participation in life in a very
Mm-hmm.
normal participant way to, oh, like now I'm the center of my story every day,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is obviously, you were saying attention is the number one thing that the number one need being met by social media and the number one commodity that it works with. And I'm curious what you think about turning every moment into something to package to share.
Yeah, I pride myself in that I believe consistently in the last decade or so. I have stood by this adage of you have to live your life first before your story is a story. And so because I came into this storytelling world through telling stories on stage through an organization that's national called The Moth. And then I also produced my own live storytelling events in Philadelphia. And I was very immersed in the storytelling scene in New York because a lot of Moth storytellers that were sharing stories from their life in these open mic situations that were competitive. So there were winners, and then the winners got attention. And it was the time when people could get book. It was kind of
Yeah,
pre-influencer. Like
yeah,
people could
yeah.
get book deals and things like
Right,
that from
right.
this event. So I was
And
in
there
that
was an
world.
art to it, right?
Yes.
This is an art and a craft, and it's
Yes.
almost by the time that you are doing that, by the time you're living the story and then sharing it, you're
Hmm.
actually not living the same story in
Hmm.
real time that you're sharing. And everybody knows that. That's not
Yes.
you're not faking it.
And I would say from my experience with the moth, because I kind of came in probably at like the second class of people of like that got known. And I'm not saying I was known from it, but just like the
You're
people I
known to
was
me.
around. But yeah, I would say a lot of people's backgrounds were in theater, in writing. Well, not everybody, but so there was like a performance element to it, or a writerly. Like I know some people, because they did my shows as well, would memorize verbatim. They would write
Yeah,
it out
yeah.
and then memorize it. I don't believe in that. And when I worked with people, I was like, you can't do that. Like here's an outline, then you have to let it go and be present in the experience. And like that's more of a actor approach, I guess, or a theater
Right.
approach. But then there's like this other space of just like being that I think is really where everyone needs to be. So yeah, there is this like mining the experience, which I had a limited number of stories that I told, but I also know people that would just mine like everything in their life basically to cull a story that was 5 minutes long or 6 minutes long so that they could get up on stage and try it and share for whatever reasons they had. But yeah, so there's the finding the moment, crafting the narrative, and then telling it in whatever forms you're telling it, whether it's live on a social media platform. So yeah, there's like these, it's evolutionary, and also our memory is constantly rewriting what
The
truly
best.
happened, which was the basis of my sort of the core of
I
my
know. I
first
can't wait.
podcast.
Yes.
But so yeah, then it ends up as like, is it even true? Like I remember
Right.
omitting a person that was in an experience with me because it was funnier if they weren't there, but I wasn't lying. I just didn't
Right.
need to include that detail
Right,
because it
right,
wasn't
right.
relevant.
Right,
But I did
right,
like erase somebody. Like if
right.
the movie happened, that person just got
Get
erased.
raised, yeah.
And I know
Well,
that that happens to a lot of people that
yeah,
tell stories.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, I wanted, like, I really want to highlight this point of
Hmm.
what watching myself as I got to participate without that kind of art and work and energy that you had put into, watching myself start to create moments, create conversations, and then with the thought I'm creating something out of this. And it really moved me into a place of using everything and everyone that was around me for my content, which is
Hmm.
completely like we just did a photo shoot in my apartment yesterday. And when you're like, oh gosh, we can use this picture. Okay, move that. Oh, cool. That like that's art. That's art.
Hmm.
Like you're using what you have around you to make this special moment because you're creating art. I think that there's something else that happens when it's your life.
Hmm.
And how's our time going by so fast?
I know.
Okay, I think I can edit um,
Yeah, we can
these
always
pieces together. So
jump back on,
okay,
right?
I think
Okay.
so. I mean, yes, we can,
Okay.
Hillary. So what I want to speak to in what you were saying is that when you go to package something to share with the public in big ways like a Broadway musical or small ways like a little post of the week, the it does not remain it doesn't remain factually true in that process. Like that's part of it has to fit into this container. It has to fit
Hmm.
into this container um, of so many letters or so many, whatever. And so you're altering it, even if in its very purest intention or form, you still have to alter it to meet this
Hmm.
to get into this environment. So that is one of the reasons we can say nothing you actually see on social media is the whole truth. It's never,
Right.
it cannot contain the wholeness of a human, a situation, perspectives, blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah, blah, blah. But this, as you were talking, it was reminding me of years ago, someone giving me a book that someone had written that was all about their trauma.
Mm.
And I read the book. It was kind of like, okay, what's your perspective as a therapist on that? And I was like, he can't publish this book. He can't. This is a book he is writing to process through his
Mm-hmm.
own pain and situation. He can't publish it. But I wasn't thinking like this would be unhelpful for the public. I was thinking he's not in a he's looking for something from the outside. He's too vulnerable to
Mm-hmm.
invite the public into his process right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, that it's not just that you're posting fake things or you're working through all your feelings on Instagram or Snapchat. It's that you have opened yourself. It's almost like you're having surgery and you shouldn't be um in downtown. You shouldn't be on Broadway right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're way too susceptible to a lot of an environment that is dirty.
Yeah, it's so funny talking about my company in the past tense because it's only been a few
I
months and I
know. We're
still like
still, yeah.
I'm
That's how we
thrilled to
know you
not.
didn't murder it.
Yeah, and I'm thrilled to not do it anymore, but I still like cherish everything
Of
I did with
course.
it. And one of the things I talked about, I had these five key elements of personal narrative or five key elements of crafting a narrative. And the fifth one was called Scars Over Wounds, which was borrowed from a sentence that I read in somebody's storytelling manifesto many years ago, this woman, Catherine Burns. And it was tell your story from your scars, not your wounds. And it was like that exact thing of it's either therapeutic healing that needs to take place or a distance in time from the experience, but being vulnerable and it's kind of, I'm using dumping dramatically. Dumping an experience on an audience is harmful for both the audience
Agreed.
and the storyteller. And I have been in those rooms and I still remember them, and not because I was like, wow, that was like a really magical, meaningful experience. I was like, that was a traumatizing experience to hear this person share their story and watch them go
Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
trauma of processing
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's that too. But I also think that if we remove the hero's journey pressure, then there isn't that pressure also to do the wound storytelling off the
Yeah.
bat
Yeah.
too, or this idea that
Yes.
everyone has to share everything about themselves all the
Yeah.
time,
Well, and
which is,
I
yeah.
want to say I have been on both sides of that too, especially in certain therapy or spiritual communities.
Mm,
There can be a lot of pressure and expectation to share that kind of stuff for the
mm-hmm,
purposes of healing. And I've had the same experience as a witness and a participant of this is not what it feels like to heal from your
mm-hmm,
story. And it's almost like, huh, I guess maybe I would like to, my version of pushing back on the hero story is it's not a story. Like, don't make a story when it's not a story.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like it's not a story. It hopefully will be someday and you will be able to tell it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like um, it's trying to force healing outside of its time to
Yeah.
make a story of it. And,
Yeah.
and maybe, okay, maybe what I'm thinking is even making a story of it for yourself, but definitely packaging it as a story for somebody else.
And I think out, I mean, you would know better than I, but I think out of a therapeutic setting, sometimes it doesn't even need to be a story for self. And part of an exercise I've done with, I don't know, thousands of people at this point is to write down, like keep a list, either a mental or written list of those, like, oh, this like woundy thing feels like a story, and keep it on the list, but like say goodbye to it for now and not to like ignore it or let it go, but know that there will be a time to revisit it, and also to remove the expectation that when you revisit it, it means there's like a happy ending
Right,
or
right.
like a big change. It's really just the healing and the perspective and the care in which to share as well and connect, which really is the most important part of storytelling, is that reciprocal connection with the listener and
Well,
the
yeah. And
storyteller.
and I guess it makes me think that that's social media and even the fact that they're called stories on,
Mhm. Oh,
you
I know.
know,
And Instagram made
Instagram.
the videos called stories. I was still on
Yeah.
it when that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And just that it maybe has with so many other things, it has what's the word I'm looking for, that it's kind of corrupted
Mm.
our even our interpretations of these words and that
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, and I used to get like really grumbly about how people used the word story and storytelling. Like I remember this Reebok ad in a printed magazine that was Gigi Hadid sitting in a director's chair, and the it was like Reebok, be a story worth telling. And I was like, what does this even mean? Like what, you're selling shoes and also you're telling people that if they're not Gigi Hadid, they're not a story worth
Right.
telling. Like there was just like so much stuff, but I feel like that, and I used to get, yeah, just like bubbled with anger about it. But now that I've put my storytelling business behind me, I, my vision for what it can be, and I don't know if this is possible with social media existing, but yeah, that everyone can make sense of their life and their experiences in the way that they want to, and share with care and share with connection and intention
I mean, it's
in
funny
mind. But I
yeah, like
do, yeah,
as you're saying this, you're stating just what it used to be like to be human.
yes, that is
I
true.
Before social media existed, I never ever remember even thinking about
Mm,
how I was telling
yeah,
anything.
you just like
Like
sit
I
around the
was
dinner
just
table.
living. I was
Yeah.
just living. There was no thought of that. It's not unlike how I never saw pictures. We never saw pictures of ourselves
Hmm.
growing up.
I know.
And we were never thinking how we looked in a picture. We
Hmm.
didn't get them till weeks or months later. And
Hmm.
so just that, like, oh, I went through my entire adolescence without thinking about what I was looking like, except when I was looking in the mirror.
Hmm.
That's it. And what, like, all that energy we now have to put into it. Was kind of learning to be a writer and had always written on some level. And like I said, that's why early blog days and early social media was really helping me to find that. Like I was writing my stories instead of telling them, and um, that was really meaningful to me. And then it turned into a brand. It turned into a lifestyle. And um, I can't imagine not having the the foundation to go back to in myself. When I first got off of social media, I remember my big challenge that first year was these moments are for you. These moments are for you. Can you just accept, enjoy, and appreciate this moment for you?
Mm.
And I had this gorgeous breakfast. I mean, gorgeous. Like friends had brought me fresh eggs. Another friend had brought me these purple fingerling potatoes. And
Mm.
I made the most beautiful, and they were those eggs that were like all different, like pastel
Hmm.
colors. I had the most beautiful breakfast I've ever had in my whole life. And I kept being like, I've got to take a picture. Like everyone has to see how gorgeous this is, stunning. And hearing my inner voice say, this is just for you. This is just for
Hmm.
you. And letting it be just for me. And now I have to work really hard to pull out, like, oh, wait, this would be a good thing to tell a
Hmm.
story about because it's been, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 years now. That's a lot of time to get something out of your system.
Hmm. Yeah, one practice I do, which it's interesting because I first heard about it from someone who is definitely one of those people that's mining every moment for a story, because they did a TED talk. I can't remember the name of the person, but there was a TED talk about like keeping every single day being like, what was my story of the day? And I liked the concept of that. I gave it as a challenge to clients of mine sometimes when they were needing content on a consistent basis. But what I do it is, what is the moment of my day that I want to hold on to? And I
Mm-hmm.
have
Mm-hmm.
like a 5 year journal where I have the one where it's like each year is its own
Yeah,
notebook,
yeah,
and I'm on my
yeah.
second round, so I'm in year
Nice. Good for
7.
you.
But I try, and I don't do it every single day, but I'll go back and just like write down like a couple words, or like what is that thing either that I'm grateful for, or that like moment I want to hold on to of the day. And I don't use, sometimes it will show up in my newsletter or like give me a creative idea, but I really just do it for myself to like ground myself in my life, which is what's most important to
Right.
me in this moment in time. And I have witnessed, like, I know, I, again, grateful for the work I did. I know that I brought great value to many people and that I did have a gift that I could share in that capacity. But I did see some people that I work with turn into story monsters, and that really, like, they were thinking about every single
Right, right,
thing as
right.
a story, and they're
Has
really
to
good
translate.
at it.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
not that noticeable, but I knew because I
Right.
gave them those tools, and then it
Wow.
mutated
Wow.
basically. And again, not in like a harmful way, really. I mean, maybe a little bit to them, but I just saw it happen. That it makes me, that's like one of the things I know that the work I will continue to do, and I'm still making a podcast and whatever company I end up working for, I know that it's going to involve storytelling, but I think I will be more cognizant, and maybe more of an advocate for, let's not all grow into story monsters.
Well, I had the thought that when you're giving everything away, right? When you're giving your story and your reflections away at that rate, they really don't have long, like you have actually given them away.
Hmm.
Like they have, like, okay, I have, that's gone. That's gone. As opposed to what you're talking about today, even if it is your story of the day, for yourself, that it's in that story of the day over time that you see the story your life is telling.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
I mean, okay, so you help people who are in, yes, you still do help people. You always will help people, but your company helped people basically who had this is my interpretation, so you can
Sure.
correct it,
Hmm.
that had possibly had the media um, take over a story or tell a different story than what was true,
Hmm.
and you coached them through the process of being able to represent themselves in a way that was honest and boundaried and sort of reclaim the narrative that they had publicly.
Yes, I would say that's where my work ended. Where it began was really in, I believe probably timeline wise lined up with this idea that companies were like, we need the brand corporate narrative, or we need all of our employees to be able to get on board with storytelling so that they can leverage XYZ. And when that was very buzzy, I said yes to doing a lot of work, and I did a lot of that kind of work for larger organizations. And then I sort of found myself in the, yeah, personal branding world, maybe when social media was really like taking off for personal branding. And it was a lot of solo business owners or thought leaders that wanted stories to build their brand, but also to gain visibility. And then in this third chapter where I sunsetted was really, and the work I really valued the most was really helping people reclaim a narrative, yes, that had either been co-opted by like the news or co-opted by public perception, or the person just felt like they weren't stepping into their and owning their themselves and their experience because they've had to hide or tone it back or keep it back in some way because of some sort of outside experience. So it was this combination of like, I don't know, it was like crisis communications mixed with personal development,
Yeah,
mixed
yeah.
with just under like yeah, getting present and finding purpose and finding the stories from there.
Well, and you also were, this was alongside when anybody could become famous,
Yes.
right? Like, and it could
Hmm.
happen fast.
Hmm.
And they're not that, I mean, I'm sure you've talked about this with a lot, like child actors say it wasn't great to be famous,
Hmm.
you know, with an undeveloped,
Hmm.
and even adults say it's not great to be famous. Like
Hmm.
everybody thinks that they want it, but it doesn't hold the value that say being rich has. But we
Hmm.
see them as like fame is my way to wealth now, right? As long as I go viral, I'll make a living, which of course is also a myth.
And that's really interesting too, because there, and I think it's okay to say this because all of this was public. There was a child actor who's now an adult, Mara Wilson. She was the Matilda in the Matilda
Yeah, yeah,
movie,
yeah.
and she was also one of the young daughter in Mrs. Doubtfire. And
Mhm.
so that was her thing. But around the same time, I entered the New York storytelling scene. So did she. And she developed this whole brand, storytelling brand and show to represent herself beyond being a child
That,
actor
wow.
and did it at a hype. I mean, she definitely got attention because she definitely came and did the shows
Right.
in Philadelphia with me and we like collaborated a bunch along the way, but it was really admirable. Like I didn't know her personally. I just like knew her through collaborating and through this storytelling world. But I always admired that she took that initiative and
Hmm,
like
hmm.
the timing was right, but also she's like, no, this is the way I want to tell my story.
Yeah.
And then that is what people focused on. Yes, people still came to the shows because of those
Right, right.
movies, but she really did move beyond it and show that it was possible in like a really
Yeah.
cool way. And yeah, there's a child actor who's now in her 50s on my list of dream guests for the next season of my podcast. So hopefully after this
Mm.
conversation, I will reach out and see
I hope
because
she hears this and she knows who she is. And she's like, they're waiting
um
for me.
yeah, because I think yeah, I mean I've a couple of my clients have been actors in the public eye and yeah, people that just had bad press for one reason or the other. And yeah, that was what I was most passionate about doing because I knew that if they could break free from that narrative and also break free from like a hero narrative, that they would just, yes, they'd be able to articulate themselves in a new way, but they would just like move through the world differently. And I just think
Right,
that's the really
right, right. Which
important
is,
piece.
yeah, I mean that's really the therapy of what you're doing, right?
Yes.
That's the inner healing. And I think that's really important that what if we don't have to represent ourselves to the public? Like,
Hmm.
what if that isn't essential? And
Yeah.
even trying to get like, I'm trying to, so many stories are coming to my mind. I can't even isolate one, but, um, oh, well, I can. I just feel like I'm protecting all of them for the very thing that we're
Mm.
talking about is that when people, especially people who, whether they're famous or just have a very strong following, they could
Hmm.
just have a very well curated um, following. When they go through real crisis, um, the, if they are even remotely healthy, they will not participate in any way. Most of the
Right.
time, they even get rid of their phone.
Hmm.
Um, it's not, it's not appropriate. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for them. It's not healthy for anybody else. It almost becomes like drinking during a crisis.
Mm.
It's like, oh, if
Interesting.
I keep just talking about what happened to me or whatever, and I'm sure you have seen this too, maybe even with more famous people, but I've seen it in my community with just popular people.
Mm.
And it was actually one of the first times I saw media trauma from the perspective of um, the poster, the one posting,
Mm.
like,
Yes.
oh, the trauma that they are causing is the way they are choosing to use their pain and grief and crisis for more attention. It almost, I don't think that there is any particular diagnosis for it.
Mm,
There will be someday. It was something like, obviously you would understand, right? If someone has lost a loved one and they drink incessantly, right, to numb the pain. We haven't really talked about what that looks like to use the trauma to get attention, to
yes.
to be the thing that numbs the pain. And
Yeah,
and
that,
and
yeah.
and usually it's actually a good story. I mean, I think that's the part where I do feel like social media rewards that. Like those are I think the research shows if something is, if it outrages you, if it makes you jealous, or if it like devastates you, right? Then you're hooked. They've got you. And so that content is going to come, the algorithm of that content will come in doses,
Mm-hmm.
um, because that's what not only triggers people but keeps them on to numb what was just triggered. So that those kinds of stories are rewarded greatly.
Mm.
They're
It,
rewarded greatly.
I wasn't on TikTok, but I was able to watch some of it on the browser. But last year, the year before, there was a woman who went viral because she told this 37-part story about finding out that her husband was cheating on her, and they were in these like 10 to 12 minute off the cuff kind of moments, and it some of there were days sometimes in between them. But I wonder if that, I can't speak for that person, but if they were doing that, because it
Yeah,
and then once
yeah,
it
yeah,
started getting viral, like there were
yeah,
more
yeah, yeah.
stories, and then she was on, all the talk shows and all
Right,
of that, and who
right,
knows what
right,
has happened. I can't even
right.
remember her name, which is
Well,
also showing how messed up it all is.
yeah, and I guess that's really what I want the essence of media talks to be, um, is that this this work around digital boundaries and digital health and really understanding the psychological and relational and social ramifications are to watch these rewards happen at the same rate that this harm is happening.
Hmm.
And I still feel like, I mean, tell me what you think. It seems to me like, oh, but you could make so much money that way. Oh, but that's how you could get your book published. That we still can be so easily deceived that success, like that our mental health is going to follow success.
Right, like the success is more important than the
We'll figure
mental
out the mental health
repercussions.
part, right? We can go
Right.
to therapy. We can, do our
Yeah.
meditation, but that it's worth the cost. That it's worth the cost. And
Yeah. I will say I'm even as someone who is not on any social media platforms, and I also neglected to include LinkedIn, but I'm also not on LinkedIn. Um, I am even feeling pressure being in the job market and being in this career transition. Like I had somebody at like a large media company say to me the other day, well, I would never hire somebody, and I hadn't officially applied for a job
applied.
with them.
Yeah,
They were just
yeah.
anecdotally saying I would question hiring someone that didn't have a LinkedIn profile. And I left that conversation in a little bit of a hot panic because it has been more challenging as someone who doesn't have a big no social presence and not much of a digital presence anymore, of proving quote unquote my
Right, right,
value,
right,
who I
right.
am, etc. But what it ultimately led to, and I'll share this on this, and hopefully it will
Yes,
exist
yes.
by the time this comes
We want it.
out. I was walking the other day, which is also, I didn't have any screens, nothing around me. And this idea popped in my head of what if I make a page on my personal website that's hillaryray.com/LinkedIn, and I make my own LinkedIn profile on my website. And I just like put the same type of format, language. I can even show my connections, like
Oh
who
my
my
gosh, you're
network is.
brilliant. You
And
are
anytime I
brilliant.
apply for a job, that's the link I'm going to include in
Well,
it.
I'll tell you,
Yeah.
yeah, I have been trying. I've been trying for like 3 years to set up my LinkedIn. I'm like, what is this place? I don't know where I
Yeah.
am. I can't find the right link to it. We'll see. Maybe that's my solution
But what
too.
I'm hearing from people on it that it's starting to cause the same kind of anguish that these other platforms cause because it is a social media platform. And when people are feeling not adequate in their career or their job situation, I am hearing a lot that I'm sure you would say is media
Yeah,
trauma.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
that's informing how they're pursuing new opportunities. And it sounds terrible.
No, it is. Well, and that this is what you have to do.
Yeah, often there's like a required
Right, right,
asterisk when you fill out
right,
the
right.
form. Um, so I've now come up with a solution that other
Oh my
people
goodness,
are
you're
hopefully
so
it will
brilliant.
be
Well,
exist soon in the next couple of days, but then I encourage other people to do it as well.
yeah, well, I just really hope that I can. I have been so overwhelmed in starting. I basically started my company at the exact time that you're tucking your company into bed,
Hmm.
and it has absolutely overwhelmed me with the 10,000, not just like platforms, but also
Hmm.
the layers of what needs to be posted here so that it's linked to here, so that it's downloaded to here, so that it's uploaded to here, so that
Hmm.
it's whatever.
Yeah, just the
It's
software
right,
alone.
right. It's so much. And then trying to figure out what's actually worth it. What of any of this?
Hmm.
Like I am a minimalist in all ways,
Hmm.
and it's too much. I know whatever I am dealing with right now, it's crossed over, and I'm really, really inspired by you to step back and be like, okay, the benefit of right now, even though the the world will tell you that you have to be a part of these platforms to be successful. One, it's not proving to be true at all. So you
Hmm.
ask everyone who's on that platform, are you successful? Did it work for you?
Mm-mm.
It's not even true, and people are becoming really disillusioned to that. Do you have a thought?
Yeah. Well, do I have time to share a
Yes,
quick
please.
story of how I first reached out to you? Because I think that it is a helpful example of a magical connection that took place that is long
Yeah,
lasting,
like
that had
Hillary and
nothing to do with
I,
social media.
yes, Hillary and I are very good friends, and we've never, ever, ever met in person.
Yeah,
So
we're looking at each other now, and I know we
we're there.
will.
Yes, we
Um,
will.
but I first heard you on a podcast, which I know there was a video version, but I listened just audio, and I listened to it multiple times. I was taking notes, like it launched something I was already thinking about into like a new realm, which yeah, thanks to you, I don't have a smartphone anymore, and I've become way more of a digital minimalist than I was prior. But I knew I wanted to connect with you and talk to you and meet you. And I knew you didn't have social media. I didn't have social media. And that's like the go to norm, from what I understand, way DMs.
Right,
But I found your website and I think I found it via Googling you. I don't even know if your website was linked on the podcast.
right.
Maybe it
Maybe not.
was. And I filled out the contact form on your website. And then I went away on a meditation retreat. And I think like a couple weeks had gone by. And when I came back, you had responded. And then we met and on Zoom and connected. And what you shared with me on the Zoom, I don't know if you remember, but your contact form configuration, the software was glitchy and you weren't getting your messages. So I think like weeks and weeks had gone by, or like a month or
Yeah,
something, still like
yeah.
a good amount of time. And all of a sudden you got my message and wrote back. And I just think I think a beautiful example of in this digital age, like even with glitches and obstacles,
Right,
we still
right,
found each other and have connected and collaborated and will continue to. And we're not like hitting like on
right,
posts
right,
or
right, right.
things like
Well,
that.
the other part of it is, I mean, this is also maybe me shooting myself in my own foot, but this has happened to me. I'm not easy to reach, and I'm not easy to find. I am. It's simple to find me.
Hmm.
I am not. accessible to anyone any single time they think to
Right.
have a thought or whatever. And um, I had at one point in time, I guess I'd spoken at some sort of therapy convention, and one of my supervisees got an email from someone trying to find me. And somewhere it said that I was her supervisee on a, you know, certification situation.
Oh,
And so she found
interesting.
her email and emailed her and said, this woman. And I was like, guess who I want to meet? That woman. Anyone
Yeah.
that's working that hard to meet with me is like I, I feel like, well, I'm going to value your time the same way that you have valued,
Mm,
connecting with me. Um, and that is a lot of what I used to have a number that everybody had, and I obviously was accessible. I was a big Facebook and Instagram girl, and I did get everyone's thoughts and feelings all the time.
mm,
And most of it was good. But it was too much. It was
mm-hmm.
just simply too much. And so now I'm in this place of I'm growing this business. I need to get my name out there. I need to get my contact information out there. But in the same way, it's not to be used up. Like I
Right.
have something I want to share and do and participate in to people who will value it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
not just to the masses.
Yeah, and I think you have to walk the walk too of the media talks while you're doing it, which is
Oh,
like you're
Hillary.
fighting against everything to do that, but you
That's
will.
how, yeah, I just as you were saying at the beginning, how during this time you're now having to create a new narrative for this new time of life, and you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is who I am. This is what I
Mm-hmm.
do, and I am the work is working on you in a new way at this new
Mm-hmm.
phase of your life. And I feel the exact same way. Yesterday, I recorded my first training video and had a major, major technical problem that I'm going to have to re-record it later this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, thank God I'm actually doing work on media trauma because I don't know how I would deal with what I'm going through today if
Right.
I didn't. And even having to make myself stop, like that's
Yeah.
a big media talks thing is you have to go by the clock, not by the work, because in digital
Mm.
spaces, it's never ending.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there like, I don't want to stop. I'm gonna finish this. I'm gonna beat this. And I'm like, Jenny, you're going to lose your mind.
Mm.
It's time. You've got to turn it off. You've got to turn it off.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to end this with telling everybody about, I love your podcasts so much. I wanted to do a
Mm.
whole thing. How do you say it? Rashomon?
Yes, that's my first podcast. Yeah, Rashomon.
Love that. I mean, we'll just do a little, even though we could do a whole podcast just on that podcast.
Mm.
Um, it's basically you have one story being told from multiple people involved in the story.
Mm-hmm.
The I mean, it's just so it's adorable. It's interesting. It tells us so much about how who we are as humans, but also it's in hearing all the stories, you actually get the story, and you still haven't got the whole story. You're
Right.
never going to get the whole story. And
And
that
my version of the story is kind of also in it too, which was the most challenging part. Yeah.
I bet. I bet. But just I love to me what that podcast exposes is our loss of context.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay that we've never had all the context. But what we're missing now is an awareness that we don't have all the context.
Mm-hmm.
If we could hold on to, I don't know the whole story. I haven't heard from everyone. I wasn't there. How much more of a gracious world would we live in if we knew?
Yeah. Or being okay when two people have very similar experiences of the same event. Because I think the word Rashomon is a Japanese word, and it was a film that came out in the 1950s by Kurosawa that explored, that kind of created this storytelling style where you're hearing multiple perspectives of the same event. And that was a fictional story. And so one of the feedback I got early on when I shared some of my podcast was like, well, some of these people like had totally similar experiences. So like, what's the point? And I was like, well, no, I think that's cool. I think it's
Yeah,
cool if
yeah,
someone completely
yes.
forgets that their daughter was stabbed with a cake knife, which is one of the stories, and like didn't remember taking her to the emergency room. But then when someone else was like, "Yep, I was there. I remember the knife going into your arm," like all of that. So I just think
Wild.
it's fascinating. It's like, again, like what stories are we telling ourselves? What memories do we hold on to? What is our relationship with the other people in the story?
So brilliant. It's
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant.
thank you. It was 3 seasons. It just ended because it felt like the third season, it was my exploration of my own stories. It felt complete. But I am really proud of that
As you should
project,
be.
and it was a lot of work.
I bet. You can hear it.
Um,
You can hear it. The quality
yeah,
is just extraordinary.
thank you.
And then the one you're working on right now is the 5 word life story.
Yes, which you have been a guest on, so everyone should listen
So
to
fun.
that. And 5 word life story was really my antidote to hero's journey and getting people in the moment, give them 5 minutes to choose 5 words that are the story of their life in that very moment in time. And people interpret that in different kinds of ways. And then get people to talk about each of those words in the context of their life or why they've chosen it now. And I always say the date that that conversation took place so that whoever's listening knows and holds that story as the story of
Yeah,
that
yeah.
moment. And I think, the words also can hold true beyond that
That
hour
time.
conversation. But I think it's something you can listen to and then do the exercise. Anyone listening to this can do the exercise on their own because I think it's a really good way to
It
break
is.
out
It
of the
is.
story pressure.
Yeah, yeah. And don't share it on social media.
Yeah, you don't have to share it.
Unlike how I did. I shared it with the whole world with Hillary. Um, and then you sent me an email last week saying that you're asking the past guests that you've had to
Mm,
reflect on those 5 words.
yes.
Tell me what you're sort of hoping to get from that.
Well, you're the second person who's that I'm speaking to today, totally different out of two different contexts that have been a guest on my podcast. And the person earlier, yeah, I explained to them, I'm just curious if you were to look at those 5 words now, do they stand true to this moment in time? And I was just asking people to record a little off the cuff reaction. And that person said, like, just anecdotally to me, said, yeah, I think these words still hold true. But I think for some people, they might be in a totally different context or
Yeah,
stage of their life
yeah.
from a year ago or 6 months ago when
Well,
they
I'll
recorded.
save my answer for your little
Cool.
tidbit.
Yeah.
Do you have 5 words for this time in your life?
Well, not at this present moment, but the plan for season 3, which ideally will be out by the beginning of August, is that I am going to do the first episode. So every episode
Good,
so
good.
far, I've interviewed someone and taken them through the exercise. And I would love to start my season giving myself just the 5 minutes and doing it and then talking about those 5 words. So
Oh, I can't wait to hear
stay
that. I
tuned.
can't wait to hear that. Let's see. Okay, excuse me. If you could give one invitation to listeners about telling their own stories
Hmm.
to themselves or to anyone else, what would it be?
Find a creative medium that speaks to you to tell, like to story tell through. So what, like, I don't know, if it's drawing, draw. If it's writing, write. If it's speaking to a friend, speak. If it's a movie, a movie. If it's your personal story up on stage with a microphone, do it. I would love for people to use storytelling as creative expression via whatever channel of creativity they want to express
Yeah,
themselves through.
I love that. Well, thank you, Hillary.
Thank
This is so
you.
fun to get
Thanks for
you on
having
my
me.
podcast.
Yay, I love it.
I'll keep you posted on how this goes, and I will put all the links to all your LinkedIn
Great.
profile will
Oh yeah,
be
my
in this
new LinkedIn
podcast.
profile.
Thanks, Hillary.
Thank you.